Hey everyone, good morning and welcome to the Divine Feminine Revolution podcast, coming at you with another episode. I've got very special guest and poetess, Jo Heckett, with us today. So, Jo, go ahead and give us a little brag intro. Tell us all the wonderful things about you.
So I brag that I am a poet, artist. I channel the divine feminine. I work in loads of different mediums, and I follow the goddess. So I channel her and follow her. So I brag that, and I bring it in every field.
Oh, I love a multi-dimensional, multi-talented, creative tapping in through the goddess. I love it so much. So you're going to treat us to some poetry. Do you want to go ahead and kick it off?
Yeah, I will. The first poem I want to read is called Juno Moneta, and I'm going to give a very little intro because Juno Moneta was a Roman goddess, and she minted money in her temple. And so this poem was written. It's about what would money be like if it was the feminine life force.
Ooh, chill.
So,
I love that.
There's one phrase I use that I'm going to just let you know what it is beforehand, and that's logos. So the power of logos is the power to bring things into life by speaking them. So to make things manifest by speaking them in words. So that will come up in here. So it goes like this. Juno Moneta. Coins tumble from my lips as pleasure speaks. A golden dragon uncurls in my belly. I feel her fire. Draw me down, she says. Give me voice. I weave worlds with my words. Ice crystals hang in the air, diamond dust. The power of logos. I speak. My dreams of God filled with her snakes. I enchant. I incant. I spell. I have been burned for less. Coins tumble from my lips. Pearls spill from my throat. Where's the harm? I have no weapon, no war, no fight. Coins tumble from my lips. Rubies, sapphires called by my tongue. My song brings life, recreates all things. Coins tumble from my lips. Pray that I speak your name.
Oh, that is so beautiful and powerful. It reminds me of when I first was in my very first coaching container. We were doing the energetics of money, and I had this big breakthrough moment where I had always viewed money as masculine, and I sort of recoded it into feminine green energy, and that just really came through in your words. So powerful, and I love the way that you performed that with such presence.
Thank you.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about who you are and your poetry journey. How did you become the artist that you are?
It's really quite interesting. So I've always thought of myself as a visual artist. I've made art all my life. I spent quite a few years. I had more of a kind of gift-based business, craft business, and then I kind of jumped sideways about 4 years ago and came back to fine art, and I started really going back to a lot of the things that had interested me before, to do with the ancestors. I'm kind of a pagan, basically. I've always been sort of an earth worshipper, and so I started channeling that back through. I'm really fascinated with prehistoric culture and earth worship and goddess, and I started channeling that back through my art. And then I've written poetry for years and years and years, but I suddenly started getting this urge to read it to people. So I kind of had reignited my writing, and I started reading it and read just randomly to people, and it just grew. And then I realized that because I also used to be massage therapist and healer, and I use my voice a lot for meditation. So I know how to bring people into like a theta state, a hypnotic state, and so on with my voice. And I don't know, I just kind of realized that there is something about my voice that can access like something in the back of people's brains and activate it. And so when I put my voice and my words together, it started having this effect on people. And at the same time, I was doing some work with Kasia Urbaniak around money and so on. And I just kind of just got this huge desire to be paid, not just to sell art, but to be paid for making art. How, like, what's the way to do it? Anyway, cut a long story short, I just decided, and I nearly swore there, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear or not in here, but I decided, fuck it. I'm going to do a poetry subscription, and I'm going to ask people to pay me, and I'll read them poems direct to their phone. Like no middle person, I'll just read it straight to the phone. And so I just started doing that, and it's grown from there. And so that's what my poetry subscription is that people pay either monthly or for a single month, and I write the poem every week and record it fresh every week. And I'm now on week, I brag, I'm on week 30. I'm doing it for a minimum 52 weeks. So yeah, that's it in a very big nutshell.
I love that so much because when I was in grad school, I got involved with like poetry slams, and I just thought it was like the most fabulous thing ever to call myself a poet. And I've always had an artistic heart. And so to be able to just like observe life and be fully in the moment and be in the pleasure of that sensation, and then to like encapsulate it in a few beautiful words and then to just like project that out into the world, I thought is just like the most exciting, amazing, romantic thing ever. And then my poetry slam career kind of stalled out because I totally had one of these failure moments where I choked on stage during the Southern Fried Poetry Slam competition, and I never picked it back up. So I've got some unfinished business there. But I love this idea that you're revolutionizing direct to you poetry subscriptions, because I think the world we're so in need of art and beauty and majesty. And I think poetry is all of those things. And I love how you're packaging it in a way that lets us, sustain and sponsor art because it's so needed in our world.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I perceive artists as shamans. So I perceive that we do a role for the whole of society and that we should be paid for that role. Yes, for the art we produce, but also for our actual role of holding that magic. Like I've written another poem, which isn't one of the ones I've selected, but it's called The Void, or How Artists Make Art. And it's about that. It's about how we dip our hand into the void and take out stuff and give it form. Like I spend half my life in a kind of semi-meditative state, basically. And so then I condense that into these poems so that basically other people don't have to spend all their life doing that. They can just hear the poems, and then it has that effect.
And I love that they're like activations, and it sounds like in some ways like attunements into the power. And I could feel that the power of the abundance in that first poem that you read. My background is a psychologist, and so I've worked, over the past 10, 15 years with a lot of young creatives. I have this theory around mental health that if we don't express our creative energy, it gets really like stuck and can turn into anxiety or depression. And for me, I'm a master number 11. So creativity and confidence is kind of what I'm here to do. And so I find for myself, if I'm not making time to be creative, it does like squirrel around into some seriously negative energy. And so I just want to say if people are struggling with any kind of mental health issues, I feel like creativity is like one of the most important things you can do. And another sort of soapbox issue for me is just, I think it's so important to support artists and to encourage our artists that they can have a successful career, because that starving artist myth, I think, just needs to go away. And I love that there's so much technology, like memberships and different things to kind of be able to support the patronage of your art.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, I mean, I know this is something we'll probably talk about more, but I also call myself envisioner of the Matriarchy, and this is one of the key tenets of the matriarchy. My version is that art, like healing, like caring roles, are valued as some of the highest paid roles, because those are the things that really are at the core of society, and without them society would fall apart, and human, mental health, physical health would fall apart. And the fact that they're seen traditionally as, well, maybe not art, we'll come back to that, as women's roles, means that they've been expected to be done without being paid, like as a vocation. And that's one of the things that and this is one of the reasons why I'm standing for this, is because I think this is at the core of changing the patriarchy to the matriarchy, or to at least matriarchy friendly, but I'm going for the full package. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. And my view of the matriarchy is like, it's kind of all of our right brain sort of things, like art and wisdom and symbolism and multidimensional states, humor, creativity. All of these things need to be revered, and I think that's part of how the patriarchy has controlled us, is they've cut away all of our modes of expression. And that's why I think so many women and men are craving to be fully expressed, because we have so many barriers to doing that. So I know for me, like, creativity, I mean, it's such a vulnerable thing to really take this thing that's like come out of your soul and put it out there for the world to see and potentially buy. Do you have any tips for like how to be brave with your creativity?
Yeah, I do. And it's kind of, don't think too much about it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my
Never.
motto, like come back to your feeling, come back to your body. Like anytime you spin out, just come back to my body, and what does my body want? And I mean, I've had that even as directly as when I've had these cramps and I've done a meditation. What does my body want? I saw myself painting these really big paintings, and I wasn't even painting at that point, I was sculpting, and I was like, okay, my body wants to do that. My body wants to paint, and it wants to paint big. I don't know if you can see in the background here, this was the first one I made as a response, and that is really big. That's about, well, for me it's big, it's like about 6 foot or 7 foot. Because before that I was making these tiny little bowls. So like, that would be what I would say. If you're feeling that fear, just tap down into your body. What does your body want to make or want to do?
I
Yeah.
love that, because I often get visions too where I'll just see something happening, and they can be big or they can be small, but whenever I follow those visions, they always lead me in the right direction. So I love that he wanted you to be big and grand. What comes up for you around taking up that kind of space artistically?
Again, that's a really good question, and I've followed this desire to be like a successful artist for quite a few years, and it's led me in a very, very interesting path. And what I realize is that the thing that I want doesn't exist yet, and that I was thinking that I wanted success within the art world, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it because I found it dry and cold. And apologies to anyone working in the art world that's loving it. I get that. That's my experience. What I realized was that my desire isn't simply to be a successful artist, it's to be a successful artist and change the art world and create the art world matriarchy. So it's taken me a while to work my way through to that point, but now that's really gathering steam. And some of the other containers that I'm involved with that are very much around women's empowerment and envisioning the matriarchy, like School of Womenly Arts and Kasia Urbaniak and other groups of women doing really incredible cutting edge stuff. It all feeds into my art practice and what I want to do with my art practice. I don't see a separation between them. So, yeah.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about how you tapped into your divine feminine. You just mentioned some really awesome experiences. Can you give us like a little story or so of how the divine feminine awoke within you?
I mean, it was always there and reasonably active, but I think that I was scared that if I followed it, I would be kind of cut out from the traditional channels of success, and that I'd be considered silly and these kind of the way that women are often portrayed, or women's ways of being are often portrayed. So really, I think the key thing for me, and this is one of the things I'm going to be teaching when I start teaching, which is coming up reasonably soon, is about embodying our eroticism, and the really the core importance as women, and for men too, is to really embody your own eroticism, and that is to feel that in every single cell, your aliveness, your it's hard to put into words because people equate eroticism with pornography, and it's not that at all. It's like, it's the joy of being alive, and that comes through sex and sexuality as well. So yeah, that's at the core really of what I do. My poetry, my painting, my sculpture, all of it is that.
I love the way that you put that creativity link to eroticism, because it does make you feel like that joie de vivre and just fully alive. And that's such a magical moment. I know when I read Pussy Reclaimed, that was a big breakthrough moment for me. Do you have any stories from the School of Womenly Arts? Like, what was that experience like?
Well, I've done quite a lot. I did master, I went to experience, then I did mastery, then I did creation, and then I've been actually working in a kind of supportive capacity over the last online course that they've just done, like in a more leadership role. I don't know, what do you want to know?
Well, I guess kind of what your journey with pussy was like, because, people who are newer to the podcast, we do tend to mention pussy quite a bit. And I know some of y'all get it 'cause you're into it and you've had your own journey with it. But like, for the novice person who's kind of like, why are we talking about pussy so much? Can you
Okay,
explain a bit?
how would I define it? For me, it's it's the seat of your erotic sovereignty. So it's your physical genitalia, it's the sensation around that, but it's also a lot more than that. So it's following pleasure as a spiritual practice. For me, that's what it is. It's that seeing pleasure as a spiritual and revolutionary political practice, and putting it center to everything, and trusting that. Yeah.
Oh, I love that so well. It's such a good. I love the spiritual practice part, and I think a lot of more conventional religions have taken all the fun and pleasure out of life and put so much like judgment and condemnation around it. And so I love the interweaving of the erotic of pussy with also like spirituality, with fulfillment, with passion. And to me that is like divine feminine energy. So I love the spin that you've taken on that. It's just really lovely.
Can I clarify that tiny bit? Because, okay, so this was the missing piece for me. I've always been a feminist. I've lost my thought. I had it so clearly exactly what I wanted to say, but it's about what's happened is that women have been disempowered and disenfranchised, and I see it like as if our erotic power has been held hostage. And as long as it's held hostage, we do what we're told because we're desperate to have it back, because we know we're not fully ourselves until we have it. So as long as someone's controlling that, they're controlling us. That's how I see it. When we reclaim that, when we embody it, and it can work for us rather than for anybody else, then we're free to do whatever the fuck we want, and then we have the fuel and the power to actually do that. And so for me, that was the final piece, was like a lot of traditional views will tell you that women's sexuality is a side issue, it's a distraction, or it's pandering to the patriarchy. But I disagree, and I think if we reclaim it and take it back ourselves, then that's what fuels us, and that is what frees the world.
I love that. And to me, it seems like, you know, our passion is the magic that we're all looking for. And for me, that's pussy. So I know pussy has made me do some wild things, including launching a podcast and talking about pussy every episode. What's the wildest thing she's had you do?
Mm.
That's a loaded question.
I don't know if I can tell you the wildest thing.
You can select out of the many wild things, but
Well, just to follow her and literally follow those desires all around the world. I mean, last year I was in Mexico, I was in New York, I was in Spain, I was all over the world. And just to really trust that, like that's pretty revolutionary in itself. Just to trust the voice that says, you're going to fucking love this, do it. Even when your head's saying, well, no, what will people say? Or it doesn't fit with who I think I am, or, just to actually really put your trust in that. I think, I mean, obviously there's lots of skinny dipping and all this kind of stuff and flashing your boobs, which I actually was tempted to do right now, but I won't because it's live on Facebook and who knows. But, really claim, really, it's just all really radical self-love, radical, all of it. I mean, it's really transformed my life, totally transformed my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And a lot of my previous therapy work has been a lot around like healing women's sexual trauma. And so I think in those scenarios, a lot of times women really, either suppress or repress or even objectify themselves because of the experiences they've had. They just like kind of cut off from their passion and their emotions and their body and their sexuality. So, for me, doing art therapy has been super powerful to kind of open some of those things back up and get them more into their emotions and their wisdom and their body and their feminine energy. But I would highly recommend, if anyone has had that happen, which is so common amongst women, reconnecting with pussy is such a powerful thing you can do to reconnect with your own desires, with your own authenticity. I actually finally just hired an actual pussy coach. Which has been really magical work. I've hired so many business coaches over the past few years. Finally, I listened to Pussy.
I'm tempted to ask who. I don't know if you're allowed to spill the beans or not.
Yeah, Leonette. She's amazing. So yes, it's been great, and I highly recommend. So I think getting in touch with the body, with the emotions, the desires, for me, it's been so powerful. And I think it's the antidote to any like patriarchal, good girl, stay in your lane kind of messaging that we get, for sure.
Yeah, and the emotions, actually, that's another huge area of interest of mine, particularly what we call the dark emotions. Like I do a lot of practices, and that's another thing when I'm teaching, that's going to be a really key cornerstone of really getting the pleasure and turn on from all your emotions. Like it's a huge thing for me, alchemizing emotions and using them as fuel. Because again, that's another thing, particularly as women, that we're always being told we're too emotional and somehow that our emotions are pesky and get in the way. So actually quite a lot of my poems, because what I do with the poems is each one is it's like a spiritual acupuncture, and each one takes a different topic and kind of does this kind of eroticizes or approaches it through pleasure and embodiment. And quite often I will take an emotion or a feeling as the center stone. Like it might be anger, or it might be despair, or it might be jealousy, and I turn it into a pleasurable spiritual experience.
I love that. It reminds me of when I was in grad school, I took some expressive art therapy classes. And I remember this like revolutionary moment for me when I was given permission to embody through art negative emotions. And for me, I'd always thought of art as like something pretty that you would want to make, that people would think looks good. And I remember this intermodal workshop where we each pulled an emotion out of a little bowl. And I remember the emotion that I got was jealousy. And then we embodied that emotion the entire time. So we did art, we drummed, we dressed up, we acted it out, all the different ways you could express jealousy. And I remember this like just key flash for me where I thought, I don't have to like it can be messy and it can be ugly and it can just be what it is versus trying to make it like okay and palatable and, you know, like approvable. So art is so powerful. And over the years, I've taken people through lots of feelings and trauma pictures. And it's like when you look at these pictures, they are so powerful. So I love that you do that kind of work because to me, I've, you know, personally and with clients healed things that I feel like just we couldn't have healed any other way.
Yeah, thank you. And in fact, I wasn't sure which was gonna be the second poem that I read later on, but I'm gonna read one that I wrote specifically for someone. She asked me to write it for a very specific, to write a poem for a specific purpose. So I'm gonna read that one at the end. That's given me made the decision for me. So yeah, thank you for that.
Lovely. So, I mean, like world traveler, you know, energy healer, multimedia artist, like how, you know, tell us more about like your adventures.
Mm. So I have a very mixed background. I grew up in Ireland in the countryside. My parents are from different places. I live in London. I have a traveling background for generations back. And so, well, you can imagine the pandemic is quite tricky for me, but I manage. Sleep in different rooms in my house, for example. I travel around my house, use different rooms at different times. Um, what adventures would you like to hear about?
Well, anything that comes to mind. Um,
So last year, it was very interesting. Last year, I traveled a lot, a lot, a lot. And I was like, what the hell is going on? This is too much even for me. I was never in one place more
yeah.
than a couple of weeks, bouncing all over the place. Um, and I got to the end of the year and I actually signed up to do another course that was going to be based in New York. And my body just went, nope, you're not traveling next year. You're not flying anywhere next year. You are not flying anywhere next year. And I was like, that's weird. So I canceled. And at that point, my mum she was spending her winters in Spain, summers in Ireland. And I was meant to be going to look after her quite a few times this year. And I told my family, I'm not going. Like, what? It's like, nope, it just feels wrong in my body. I cannot tell you. All I can tell you is it feels wrong. I'm not flying next year. And when the pandemic hit, my family were like, how did you know? I'm like, I don't know. I just knew 2020 was not going to be traveling. So yeah, I don't know. I guess
Yeah,
that's my travel story.
I had a similar experience where my intention for 2019 was to travel as much as possible, and we did indeed do that. And I feel like, yeah, the goddess was whispering that, 2020 was a little bit about staying put. Do you have any divine feminine interpretations of like what the hell is happening this year?
Um, I I do and I don't. So I was in Ireland for a few months in the summer looking after my mum, and I got a very strong feeling that we need to ground down. So one of the downloads I got last year was that the earth really needs people to reconnect.
Mhm.
That the reason why so many, just that the earth really needs people to reconnect. So that the earth really needs us to reconnect and ground down. And so I'm making sure I do that, even though now I'm back in the city. And that would be my one thing that I would say to everyone, because there's so much crazy information out there, like so much, whatever's going on. It's like this vortex of stuff. And that what's really, really important is to feel into your body and connect your body to the living earth, and just do that over and over and over. So that's really the thing that I would say. That's what's keeping me there.
Yeah, I think that's such amazing advice. And I always need the reminder to ground down. I really feel like the biggest part of like the matriarchy rising is really reconnecting with the earth because she is the feminine. And so to really care about our environment, to be back kind of in a more tribal vibe where we're in communities, where we're outside, where we're able to do what we want. Like, I feel like that is part of the energy that's coming back through this portal that we're all in. We had, as we're taping this, the Gemini eclipse was on Monday, and that was definitely, I think, part of the portal opening into this new time, 2021. And I know for me, ever since 2012, I've really been following what I would call sort of the beginning of the divine feminine revolution, although obviously she's been around for a long time, but really where she's going to be the dominant energy. And I just am like, I can't even believe that we're towards the end of 2020 and it's about to happen. What do you think we're in store for 2021 and beyond? Like, if you could wave a magic wand and kind of re-envision the society with divine feminine inspired rule, what would that look like?
Well, in an early part of the pandemic, I went from the idea of the matriarchy as an idea to this strong feeling that it can be an actual thing in the physical world. And so I've spent this time envisioning that. So making decisions based on how would this be like if it was matriarchal? How would I behave if this was the matriarchy? How would this business run if we ran it from a different set of perspectives? How would I interview this person? All these different things. And so I suddenly realized it's almost 2021. I haven't thought about it at all. I have people talking to me about all these scary things that this is going to happen. And I thought, what I really want for 2021 is to free my desires and let them rise unbidden, regardless of whether logic tells me they can happen or not. And so I started feeling into that, what I desire for 2021. I desire magic. I desire wildness. I desire to call in the matriarchy. I desire to continue to connect more and more with other women that are also doing that. I desire to have fun in real life, to meet people in real life. And I desire to swim in the ocean so badly. Amongst other things. But for 2021, my feeling is it's going to be transitional still. And again, that it's really important, like envisioning is really, really important part of our role and our job. Like, if you can envision it, it can happen. And so to not limit ourselves to, oh, I will only envisage what I think will happen. It's the opposite. It's let me envisage it, and then I know it can happen, right? So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
It does. It's a beautiful way to actualize things. And I think that's another feminine power technique, is to use visualization to really dream it into being. So I love that a lot. So I know you want to do another poem. Does it feel like a good time? Is there anything else that you want to share?
No, that's good. Could I be greedy and do two?
Yeah, do as many as you want.
Great. So then I'm going to do this other one about success, because this is based on this is in response to the fact that all our systems have been shaped around men, and that this is like a hidden part of the architecture that we don't realize. And as women, we strive and strive and strive, and we're like, oh, fuck, what's wrong with me? I never get it right. It doesn't feel right. And that's because it's not shaped around you. And that's why we need to reshape it all. So this one is called Success. It goes like this. The door of success is not shaped like me. It wasn't made for me, for my rolling hips, my multi-hued emotions, my earth-felt dreams. I have tried. I've bound my breasts, sobered my clothes, lowered my voice, padded my shoulders. But the door of success is not shaped like me. I've twisted my knowledge, squeezed my thoughts, pushed my talent into too tight shoes. But the door of success is not shaped like me. It wasn't built for me. It's a miracle I even found it, clothed as it was in cigar smoke and smells of whiskey and sweat. I've looked through to the other side, but the door of success is not shaped like me. And even though I have found it, I still decline your kind offer to allow me an honorary achievement for a lifetime's work. I decline to give up my exquisite joys for paper promises. I decline to add my service to the bricks that pave its path. Because my success is sipped from iridescent glasses, licked slowly before being devoured. My success is slow and lazy, wild and fervent, damp and cool and soft. My success tastes of plump plums and wild honey, guarded fiercely by stinging bees. My success caresses and pleases, calls my name in its sleep, wants me in its arms. My success comes when it is ready and not before.
Oh, I love that. Oh, gosh. Yeah, sometimes she makes us wait.
Yeah, there's a little pun wordplay at the end.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And it does feel like such a powerful transmission. I had this image of, just like a door. And then when you were really describing all the different aspects, it just was one of those moments where like you flip the script, and so I can definitely feel that activation there and super empowered. And I love your voice and your expression.
So you can imagine if you're getting these poems week after week after week, it really builds up.
Yeah.
And so because I deliver them as an audio, you can listen to them as many times as you like. And they're short, so you can listen to them before bed, you can listen to them when you're meditating. And it really, over the weeks, it really, really builds up. It really starts to change things in a very pleasurable and easy way, right?
I can feel that. It goes deep for sure.
So I have one more. And of course, if anyone watching this or listening wants to have these poems regularly, wants to be in my subscription, I wanted to offer them to have double poems for the first month. So instead of one a week, they're going to get 2 a week. So I know at the end you're going to put how people can do that, or I'm going to say how people can do that. Maybe I'll tease and just leave it right at the end. But I'll let people know how they can sign up. But yeah, anyone that does sign up of your followers or your listeners will get double poems for a month. So
Double the activation.
double the activation. And people can sign up for a single month or ongoing as a subscription, either.
Well, what kind of transformations have you seen when people experienced your poetry? I mean, I'm feeling transformed already.
I think like I've got a couple of people who are creatives, and they say it really helps to release their creativity and to open that channel. I've had people message me saying that it transforms their connection to their family, or it just brings them into that state of pleasure and inner awareness that and it gives them permission, like permission to feel things. And because they're all different, so different ones have different effects. Obviously, like I have one that's called My Mother's Other Life, which is every verse is a reimagining of a different life my mother led, from being like a warrior priestess to a pirate to like a seductive dancer, to all these different lives she could have had. And so that's kind of like a prayer to the ancestors and a reimagining of what it is to be a woman. And I don't know, people email me all the time and message me all the time going, oh, that was amazing, that made me feel this, that I didn't know I needed to hear, that's exactly what I needed. Or yeah,
It sounds like the poem itself is a portal, and I love that idea about your mother's other life. And I have definitely investigated the idea of like different timelines, and different parallel realities where maybe in one life you're a mom, in another life you're the adventurer. And so I just love that concept. And I think that it's like never too late to go for it. Like you said, like just unapologetically chasing your desires. So I desire to hear another poem. Are you ready for the next one?
yes. So this is the one I wrote for a friend who's one of my subscribers actually, and she asked me to write one specifically for her, and it's called River. There is a river in me that moves deep and slow. I hear it when I sleep. It's covered in layers of concrete, bricks and rubble, debris of ages. My mother's mother's mother lived beside it, washed her clothes, bathed her children, dipped her naked body in its cool, moving waters, allowed her head to sink below and gaze up at the light beyond its surface. From here, only the sun, the moon were visible through the lens of unbroken water. Lately, I hear the river, even in the day, even while awake, even when in company. Lately, I feel the river, gathering strength as it seeks the sea. Lately, I smell the earth at its banks, damp where splashing drops escape. Lately, I see the dragonflies and kingfishers, silver minnows, living jewels among the tumbled stones of its bed. Lately, I hear the song my mother's mother's mother sang as she refreshed her voice with gulps and sips and gazed at her own reflection in amazement, much as I now gaze at mine.
Mm. Oh, that one touched me really deeply. I love that ancestral water imagery. It was so nurturing and powerful. And I feel like you put into words something that I felt and maybe hadn't realized exactly what it is. So I don't know, you sold. I want to get your subscription.
That one is about this magical thing of DNA, that our DNA connects us all the way back to the first ancestor that we all share in common, ancestral Eve. They call her mitochondrial Eve. And so it's this idea that actually through this magical thing of DNA, we like our ancestors are living. Anyway, it's something that can only really be explained in poetry. But yeah, that is it.
Yeah, I love there's that quote that says like you're the product of the love of thousands. And I have that like cross stitched on a little vintage wood piece in my I think it's Linda Hogan who said that. It's really beautiful when you look back at all the different number of people that it took to get to you. Like,
Mm.
epic numbers, and to see those things like live on through you is really powerful. Well, I've just loved visiting with you today. I mean, what a beautiful, it's morning here, probably not in London, but it was a beautiful way
Dark already.
to start my morning, and I feel super inspired and up and ready to go. So like I definitely recommend interacting with Jo, get some art classes, get some coaching, get the poetry, your subscriptions. You've got all of the things, and so I can't wait to see what you come up with next. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about where we can find you on the
Yes.
web?
So you can sign up to poetry at my website. That is joheckett.com/poetry. If you go to the website, you will see it there. I'm basically Jo Heckett across all platforms. Most active on Instagram, really. That's the best place to follow. I do goddess walk and talks where I share my communications from the goddess, and I have fun with reels, and I post all my different art on there, and sometimes bits of poetry too. Yeah, and then my website has, like I said, you can sign up to the subscription there and get your free poems. And the other thing is that I'm going to be doing, which there will be links on my website, I'm going to be doing some like virtual like Santa's Grotto, where people can book a slot with me and look at all my art and talk about it, and if they want to buy something they can buy something. So I'm going to be doing that in the run up to Christmas as well.
I love that. And I've just been like drooling over your paintbrushes and paints behind you.
Oh yeah.
On video. I love a little peek into an artist studio. I just redid an art space. Maybe I'll put some pictures up, but it makes me want to go geek out and buy a bunch of paints and brushes and really get that all ready to go. So thank you so much for spending some time with us and channeling the divine feminine energy through your art. And thank you for just showing up in such a powerful way and following your desires.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I can't wait to hear how people take it and run with it.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Megan.
Bye.
Bye.